Right.
Hey everyone, it's Miss Ashley from the Murrieta Library. Today we are together with another Book Babes episode with Miss Diane from Circulation and Miss Agnes from Adults/Teens. And we are talking today about how we got started in libraries, some memorable experiences, and anything that segues from there. So stay tuned.
Yay! Okay. I think that as a child, I've really been going to libraries a long time. So it's a classic story of a patron turned library worker turned librarian. So when I was a kid, I always loved to read books. I always went to my school library. For a while in my college days, I only went to when I have to. And then eventually, when I was pregnant with my son, I started getting an obsession. I lived in Temecula. I went to the original Temecula Public Library, and I went there almost every day checking out a book. And finally, I saw an opening for a library page. Hey, I can do this. So that's how it started. I started as a library page at the Temecula Public Library, and from there moved on and moved up and ended up here in Murrieta. So that's a short, condensed version of that. So I've been with a library or worked in libraries for 15 years now. So that's how long. And I'm not telling you my age.
You look young. You're good. All right, Ms. Diane, what about you?
Mine actually started as an after-school job. My senior year, my mom said, all right, you need to start earning your own money. I'm not paying for anything else. So thankfully, like right up the street I used to work at the Escondido Library. I started there as a page. It was actually my sister's idea to go apply there because I was applying everywhere with no job experience. I was 17. There wasn't a whole lot available because you had to be 18 for most of the jobs.
Yeah.
So my sister said, well, why don't you try the library? She's like, you love to read. It's right up the street. You can walk to work. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I was actually a library aide in high school, and one of my classes was a library aide, and I loved it.
Fun.
I was covering books. I was, edging the shelves, putting all the things, making sure everything was nice in order.
A woman after my own heart, edging the shelves.
Edging the shelves is like the best. I try and edge our movies, and it doesn't work.
I did it when we open, and yeah, by the time we opened, I'm like, oh. So I started there as a page. I was a page for probably a few years, and then I moved up to a circulation assistant. And at the Escondido Library, they had an actual separate counter just for checking out items. So you would stop and see us first. And then I was a couple years there, and then moved up to a library associate, which is basically like the same thing I am here at Murrieta. But again, this whole thing was part-time. So eventually I was like, okay, I need something a little more, I got to pay my bills. I got rent. And so I started, my boss actually, she said, I don't want to see you go, but there's a full-time opening, and I know that we can't give you that right now, and you know you need it. So she actually showed me about this opportunity, and so I came here, got the job here, and I've been in libraries a total of, oh my gosh, it'll be 19 years next month.
Oh my
gosh.
Yeah, she started really young.
Yeah, that's what happened. You were counting your school years too, right?
No, that's
just work.
Yeah, that's just working. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I think I started in my early 20s. I think I was 22 when I started working in libraries.
Wow, that's awesome.
I love it. I would be lost anywhere else because I only know library work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely enjoy it.
Well, I mean, we love you there, so we're happy to have you. So thanks to your old boss.
Yeah.
So I started in recreation. I mean, you both know. My mom worked for the community services department for Murrieta. So I grew up helping her at all of her special events. She was the one that put on the first Veterans Day parade, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting a job at the senior center right next door to the library before the library was built. and basically took my volunteering that my mom made me do, like, oh, here's your craft vendors for my, Christmas, thing that I'm having. And then when I got the job, I just took my job and my volunteer job and incorporated it into my actual job. And I was part-time and I needed full-time. And I couldn't be full-time because my mom was full-time. And that's a conflict of interest. So I started looking for another job, and the library was being built. And I'm a reluctant reader because I have I have learning disabilities. So reading for me is really hard. So I was kind of like, I don't think I belong there. I'm not a huge reader. And my cousin, who worked at now the Grace Melman Library, but he was a librarian there, he's like, it's more than reading.
Oh, we love Thomas.
Yeah. He's like, you'll be really great. So I came in as a part-time library assistant, left Murrieta. It was such a sad day because it was in the middle of the recession, and my husband's job was going to possibly lay him off. It was either his group or another group. So I went to Sun City and spent 5 years trying to come back to Murrieta, and that's how competitive Murrieta is that they all knew me. They all knew how hard of a worker I was. And people like Catherine beat me out. And so she got it over me. And then I went in for an interview with Agnes. On my due date, I came in super huge. And I remember I was wearing the baggiest clothes. Nothing fit. My feet were swollen. I was in flip-flops. And I sat down and
You were a cute pregnant woman, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was
and in my mind, you look petite. So.
And they go, when can you start? That's like that question, like, oh, what's your earliest availability? And we all just started laughing. I was like, I'm just here to be on the eligibility list. Let's just be honest here. And then came home with my daughter on the weekend, and then that Tuesday, Allison called and said, you were on the eligibility list. When can you start? And I go, I just gave birth. And they said, we'll wait. And that was the best baby gift I got. How about, let's see, we already went over how we got into libraries, but what are some memorable moments of working in libraries in general?
I think for me, one of the things that I absolutely enjoy every single time is when a kid comes in and gets their library card for the first time, and just the excitement. They're so excited, and which is one of the reasons that we got the step stools for Cirque is, we have those high counters, little ones, you could never see them. And so now they come up
their head.
You hear them charging up the little steps, and then, they're ready and they're excited. And, when the parent goes over the borrowing guidelines with them, and they're trying to make sure that they understand in a way that they'll get it. But it's just the cutest thing, and they're so excited. And then getting to watch them, write their signature on there, and they're big letters, different sizes, some capital, some lowercase, and just, they're so proud. And it's like, they hold it and they're just looking at it, and it's the cutest thing, because then they'll walk off to the children's department and they're just still staring at their card like they can't believe it. Yeah. I love it, just because I remember, I think I was maybe about 6, when my sister took me to the library and got me my first card. This is how different the times were back then. You didn't have to have a parent.
Yeah.
She signed me up for it, and she's the one that taught me how to read in preschool. And she worked with me.
That's sweet.
Eventually she ended up homeschooling her own kids as she got older. But for me, I was her little, I went everywhere with my sister. And so she taught me how to read, and I had this love of books. So she took me to the library. And I remember just being there and sitting on the floor and going through all the books that I wanted to take home and checking them out. And then, she taught me the responsibility of a library card and what that was and what it meant. And she's actually the one that suggested I work at the library. So it just came full circle. But yeah, that's got to be one of my most favorite things.
Absolutely. I love that. I love watching that happen, because I'm in children's and I hear you guys talking, and I watch them run, and you're supposed to tell them oh, walking feet, and I just let them run. I'm like, yeah, come come to me, like I got you. And then just watching you guys interact with them too, you make it such a special moment for them. And the step stools were amazing. That was a good touch.
Yeah, and the kids are so cute and they're so easy to please. When you tell them like you get a library card, and all of a sudden their eyes get big and like, oh, feeling like that feeling you're a grown up, like you're doing things.
I think your library card is your first real responsibility without a lot of responsibility. I think it's a good door to open up to, to gain that respect. I think it's better than like, here's a pet, like, no, here's your library card. It comes with responsibility. Like, you have to take care of it. You can't lose it. And just to make it all special is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a credit card as a child.
For them, right? And then like, cause you have like the little like Velcro wallets that they open, and that's like the only thing in there is like your library card. Maybe you have a school ID, maybe like a Chuck E. Cheese game card or something, but your library card's like the only thing in there. I love that. What about you, Agnes?
I feel like for me, there's a lot of memorable in the, for a long time, we've all worked in the libraries. For me, there's not really most memorable, but the more memorable parts for me are the individual patron interactions and their unique stories.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like sometimes, like they tell you some, I don't know at the other desk, but at the reference desk, most people come with, they have something. They need something. They need a form. They need information. They need a phone number. And sometimes you hear all these sometimes crazy stories about their lives. And in part, I feel like sometimes a social worker, an entertainer, a social worker, and there was even a time that I felt like uncomfortable in some of the stories, or like a mother trying to find a way to get custody of her child because she's in a violent relationship. I mean, those are sensitive topics that sometimes we're not always equipped to know, but the best thing we can do is provide information and resource for them and hope for the best. So, I mean, memories for me are like the interactions with our older patrons. They're always so nice. Well, not always, but most of them are very, very nice.
The majority, yeah.
I even had at Grace Melman, I used to have one man. Every year he would say that he would invite me. Hopefully he lived to be 100. He was in his 90s, and he said, if ever I turn 100, you are all invited to my party. And unfortunately, I had to move to a different library by the time he turned 100. So I'm not really sure if he made it to 100. But he would even, every time he comes over, he asked for me, and he would create poems for me. And, like just little things, not necessarily about me, but just things that he wrote. I said, okay, you read this. I mean, it's such a fun thing to have that interaction. Even like for the ones like us, like we've seen kids grow up.
Yeah.
Like there was one kid that we've known since they were like little, like in a baby stroller. And now they're like in their teens, in middle school, in high school. That's scary. How time flies and how people change. I feel like we're constant, and they just, continue to change.
Yeah.
Because we're constantly there. They're constantly using the library. We know them, and I feel like they feel good that we remember and know their kids, their families, and check in their parents. When's their birthday? I love that type of personal interaction we have with the people that come in to the library.
Yeah, I posted on my social media, like, what was it, like last storytime session? I'm like, I'm a storytime grandma, because one of my storytime kids is now bringing her storytime baby, like her baby to storytime. And I looked at her like, whoa, 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 whoa. So it's really generational. So it's the baby, it's the mom who I used to do storytime with. Then her mom would come in, and she would bring her dad in a wheelchair so he can see it. And it's just great because, like, I'm only in my 30s and I'm a grandma of a storytime kid, like, and it's amazing to watch happen. But at the same time, you're like, oh gosh, that hurts.
Give me some Advil.
Is that why my back hurts when I'm trying to do the hokey pokey?
I have to do a shortcut for that. I can no longer do the whole shebang.
Oh yeah, same.
Mostly hands now.
I told Miss Allison when we come into her story time, because sometimes she has me come in as a helper when we don't have enough volunteers. And there was one where she's like, where it goes like, stand up, sit down. I'm like, do not do that song. My knees will scream at you. But for me, so this actually happened at Sun City, because Sun City was a little different with story time because I didn't have helpers. So sometimes like I would have like one parent in to come and kind of like help. And the parents had to be like outside, but this little girl would not come in through the door. Now I'm a very shy person. I know it doesn't seem like that, but this is all like a front. So I understand where like the shy kids are coming from. And the grandma would try and bring the little girl in, and she would be clutching at her grandma so hard. And I just go, stand in the back. She's not going to make any sound. She's shy. Like, it's fine. And every time, just keep coming. She's going to get comfortable. And it took like 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then she was sitting like on the carpet. And I was like, see what I'm saying? Okay, now the next two, like, just go and stand outside the front door. And then by like a couple months, she was like the one like in the middle, in the front row, raising her hand, shouting, screaming, dancing, giving me a hug. And that's what I like about story time, is that if you don't like push, the kids are not ready to be pushed. If you just let them experience it on their own, they're going to come around. So I love watching kids explore and become braver and kind of knock away that shyness. I love getting to know the kids and their personalities. I think that's my favorite part of working in a library in children's, is watching the kids get excited, giving them like you getting hugs, watching them run in for story time. At Murrieta, it's a little different because when we close the doors are closed. So you get to know the parents so well that they know they're running late for story time. They literally open up the back door and you walk in and you grab the kid out and you just take them by the hand and walk them in. All right, I'll be right back. And they go park and you see them running, and that's what I like, is that the parents trust you, the kids trust you. It's a good family community that we have in story time.
Yeah. I just like yes, I feel like I'm awkward in person, like just as myself.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I work in the library, I'm actually normal. I feel like I welcome. I honestly feel relaxed in a library setting. For me, it's a safe place to interact with people. I don't know. I just feel a sense of comfort whenever I step in. So when we do open to the public, I'm going to be one of those, like, when the people see something, or like that cartoon says, squirrels, people. I'd be thirsty for conversation. Like, how are you? I was like, oh, we have to go. Oh, you don't have to leave. Not yet. And then someone would say, oh, it's time. Cut it.
Well, now you'll just schedule yourself up at desk more. You can have that interaction more.
Oh, well, we haven't had one since, when was the last time that we were open to the public?
March 13th.
Oh, so you even remember. So yeah.
I mean, it was Friday the 13th. It was a full moon and the world stopped. It's kind of hard to forget that date. And I keep a track on my daughter. I do a daily update. 152 days as of this recording. Yeah, because I keep a daily track on my Instagram.
Yeah. What about like for you guys, what is like in terms of maybe most memorable or most fun you've had in the library setting? Not necessarily Murrieta Public, or things that you didn't think that you would be able to do at the library, but you did it. Do you want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. Gracewell Library was renovating and they were changing out all the carpets and all that. And I thought, why not do a dog contest? We did the cutest dog in town contest in our community room.
Before the carpet was taken out?
Before they renovated Grace Melman, because I thought like, oh, if the dogs pee on whatever, or someone had an accident, someone bit on a book or whatever, we're good. They're going to renovate the building. And at that time, we didn't, I was the acting manager, so I could just, with permission from my boss, that I could just do it. So Catherine was there with me. Catherine, and she helped me do the legwork for getting vendors to sponsor us, to help people, go into the library. So we had Grace Melvin, the Friends of the Library president at that time, become a judge, and the zone manager as well, and another person. And we had like about, I think, 20 people with their dogs, and we had a little mini stage, and it was raised, and they had a fashion show. They had like a fashion show, and there's little kids that introduced her. This is my pet. I've had her for 5 months. And it was so cute. And I was so thankful that all the dogs were calm.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, as I think my younger self, well, my older self now is more cautious of things like that. But my younger self was just like, go, 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 go. Let's do this. I'm excited.
I know your more experienced self is probably going like, what did I do?
Yeah, because there was like kids, there were like dogs were outside or coming in. But I think everybody that participated at that time had a lot of fun. And, when we did the contest on Facebook for post a photo of your pet, I think that a lot of people, especially in this community, love their animals.
Mm-hmm.
And well, ours was just a dog contest, but imagine if we did like an cutest animal or pet, contest. That would have been insane. But yeah. But I always have outlandish ideas. Like
yes, you do.
At Wildemar, I said, "Oh, we're not going to be open to the public from whatever time." I did for Easter. I did the entire library. I hid, it's just a small library, but I hid Easter eggs. And so all the kids were from outside, went inside to hunt for eggs. Literally, we put them all in nooks and crannies of the thing.
Oh, fun.
I know. That sounds so much fun.
And then for our library, I did for the teens is I did laser tag.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that joined in were pretty stoked, because when can you do that at a public place? Not just a public place, but a public library where you can scream and shout and laser tag the people that you don't know. So, and there was pizza involved. Yeah. So those are like just some of the things I think for me that was like outlandishly not normal library program. But memorable wise, I feel like there's just too many. I feel every interaction I have, whether it was good, bad, funny, sad, it's all memorable. And it's like too many to mention. But like what I said before, the things that stand out the most are the interactions where, that means something to the patron. It's like things that you help them in the time of their need. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, that for me is like when you change somebody's life without doing anything. I think that's like my favorite thing, because at Sun City, I started teaching meditation, and that was more for me and for other people. But there was a widower, and he would come in off, we called him Meditation Mike because my husband's name is Mike. So I didn't want to get the two Mikes confused. So his name to us was just Meditation Mike. And he was a widower. He was lonely all by himself, all this stuff. And he just started coming into the library and started meditating with us. I only saw him during meditation. He was probably the one that got the deepest into meditation too. Like he went in hard, he stayed in long. His breathing would steady and all this. And one time he just caught me off guard one day, and he's like, "You saved my life." He goes, "When I came into the library," he's like, "I was suicidal." And I was like, "I didn't save your life." At this point, like, you change from being a librarian and being an employee to where you have to follow guidelines. Because, I said, "I didn't save you, God saved you." I'm not supposed to say that as an employee, but I knew this man, and I knew that that's what he needed to hear. And I'm like, "I didn't do it. You brought yourself in. You brought yourself every week, even though you couldn't afford it. You sat in that chair. I didn't do nothing. I just facilitated something." So things like that. And then a man came in, because the Sun City is all very senior demographic. So you have more seniors than you do anybody else. I mean, there's other type of patronage, but for the most part, it's all seniors. And one man came in and was trying to use our fax machine, and the fax machine wasn't going. But because it's personal information, us as staff cannot step in. But he told us this situation where he's like, my wife's in the hospital in San Diego. She has to have open heart surgery. They cannot operate until I get this paperwork faxed to them. I'm all by myself up here. I had to drive myself up here I'm like, what the, like, are you kidding me? And what do you do in that situation? You know, technically you're supposed to walk away and be like, you know, sorry. But I said, okay. And I took his credit card. I typed in his information. I faxed him that stuff. And I said, use our phone, call the hospital. He called the hospital. They said they got the forms. There's no time. She went into surgery without him. And I don't know what happened, but at that time, you know, even my manager at the time, he was like, I would have done the same thing. And the man was just crying. He's up here by himself. His wife is needing the surgery down below, you know, in San Diego, and she's by herself, and modern technology is not kind to people who don't understand it.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, you got to do what you got to do. And so those are my most like memorable connections with people. And then on the flip side, you know, coming to Murrieta, my favorites are always the stuff that make my adrenaline rush. And that's using my recreation experience. And, oh, you want a STEM fair? Let's do a STEM fair. If you want 20 vendors, bring in the 20 vendors. You want a large dinosaur, Allison? Let's do it. Let's get a live dinosaur in here.
I missed that program. Even like TAC has, some of the TAC members have bad memories about it because it was so scary. The crowd, he said, was so scary.
So we had, at that particular time, we maxed out the room and we had 2 showings, and we were full with both showings before the library even opened. So, and that's when
the big dinosaur that I
was like, one line here, get the A-frames out. And if you've never been to one of our programs, we have A-frames that says event full that we have out. It says library parking only. And then people pull in, people park on the side of the streets and on the dirt lots and everything. And then when we have like 20, 30 spots left, we send runners out and we flip those signs. We flip the 3 signs that says event full, and you have people driving, what do you mean it's full? We're like, you ain't going to make it, you know?
No. But some people still go, and that's how you make it full.
Yeah.
Persevere.
You persevere. You can try. Just don't get mad at us because we're at the limit.
Yeah, we don't
Fire
want
marshal, if you're watching this, it doesn't happen anymore, but please do not show
you don't want to invite him.
we burnt ourselves out. If you guys were there between, like, if any patrons were there, what was it, 2017, 2018, I think not only did us as children's staff get completely burnt out, but I think we took the rest of you down with us because it was insane. And for me, that being, I mean, I've done parades where it's televised, and, you know, our dispatcher is with the city's police dispatchers up north, you know, where we fly. It's crazy. I can handle those things, but in a library setting, you're doing your daily operations, your daily duties, on top of having 400 to 500 people in a 2-3 hour time block. It's insane.
You guys are gonna call me crazy, but those times that you guys were stressed, I was like, yeah.
It was a good stress for me. Like, when somebody comes up and be like, what do you recommend? I'm like, dude, I read nonfiction. What do you want? You want World War II? But like, when I think that's like what got me the full-time job, was that I can do big events and it doesn't scare me. And for our big events, I mean, I'm talking like our kickoff programs, which had 1,000 people and 20 some vendors, and I'm mapped it out and nobody had to worry. You guys just came in ready to work. And I'm like, oh, it's all set up. You know, I thrive off of that. But put me into helping you pick the right book for your child, I freak out. I am so scared because I don't want to do your kid wrong. So yeah, I thrive off of adrenaline like that. What about you,
Adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think I have a couple. One of my like most I don't know, I guess like mind-blowing experience for was at Escondido Library. They held a Harry Potter like, I keep wanting to say haunted house, but it wasn't. It was literally like they transformed what like is us, like our community room, but it's larger than our community room.
Mm-hmm.
Completely transformed it. You could not tell that you were in that community room. It was like they had every like little block, like sections blocked off. So you just follow this path. And as you're going through the paths, you stop at a booth, and one was like a spells and potion booth. And then you go. And so it was all themed to Harry Potter. They had staff, they had volunteers that had dressed up in costume. I mean, really, like walking in there, you would not have known that you were at the library anymore. Like it was a completely different thing. And it's like when we do our programs here, how like you walk in, you're like, oh, this doesn't seem like I'm where I normally would be. Like this isn't where I do story time, or, you know, it was the neatest thing. And it was like, like you said, like it was huge, and it was like so many people, and it was just this constant flow. And you actually entered out of the back of the library. So it's like, it went through this whole thing. And it was awesome. Like I loved it. I went through it myself because I was like, oh my gosh, I want to see. And
I want that idea.
I know.
it was so huge and so successful, but it took so much that was the only, like they wanted to do it every year, and that was it. Just the
How
one.
long was the setup? Like, how long did it take them to set up?
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember. It was a while. Like they worked on it for days, you know, like no one was booked in the room, and it's just like little by little they set everything up. And like I said, like you could not have recognized that you were in a huge space. Like it felt like you were in like a in like a maze type thing. Like it did not look like nothing was recognizable, and it was so much fun.
That's awesome.
That I wish we could do something, but I know how much stuff it takes, even just for our programs that we do, you know, have on a regular basis pre-COVID.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She's hiding now because she saw people.
And I think for Murrieta, one of my favorite experiences was my first story time. I remember Allison approached me, and, you know, because I was always helping out in story time. I was a helper. I love kids. I love working with kids. That's like, would be my ultimate dream. But this, like, I remember she's like, oh, she goes, well, you know, you love kids and you like, you know, helping in story time. Like, would you want to do one of your own? I was like, oh my gosh, like I can do that. You know, I was so used to the mindset of, okay, each department, that's your department. You do stuff in your department, that's it. And one thing I did like was it started at Escondido, and I'm doing it here as well, but they trained me. They said, okay, well, if you're interested in helping out in any other whatever way, let me know. And so I remember I went to my supervisor and I was like, oh my gosh, like you know, wherever you need me, I would go. Like just train me. I want to learn everything. And so I used to cover the children's desk there, and I would help out with programs. I covered, we had a media desk. So it was all where all the movies and audiobooks, all the media was. And so I covered that desk. I covered our internet desk. We had a designated place over there. And I traveled all throughout the library, and I absolutely loved it. And that's one of the things that I was able to bring when I came to Murrieta was, oh, hey, I can do all the other stuff. I know circulation, but I also know a lot more.
Hi, baby.
And then I love that about here. It's the same thing. You know, I got trained to work at the children's desk, and then now I was trained to work at reference. And one of the great things that I love about our library here is that through the city, you know, we have that funding to take courses and to gain more knowledge and to be able to apply this. And so, oh my gosh, as soon as I found that out, I was eating it up. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a reference. So I took reference fundamentals. I took children's services. I took it all. And I was like, oh, okay. So when Allison had asked me that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just took one on story times. Okay. So I was excited. And I remember the day that morning came, I was in a panic. I was like, my anxiety was through the roof. I just like, oh my gosh, what if the kids don't like it? And what if they're quiet and they don't respond and interact? And I was just, my nerves got the best of me. And I remember I was telling, I think Brian and Stacy at the time, old Stacy, I was telling them, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, I don't think I could do this anymore. I'm scared. And they actually helped me. I think Stacy was our little photographer for the day. So she took pictures of the program. And then Brian helped me out in story time. He played a bear.
I was like, is that the bear one? Oh my God. Those are like my favorite pictures of story time were the two of you.
I had so much fun and just seeing.
I think Brian had so much fun too.
Yeah. He got to growl. And
yeah.
But it was the most fun, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do my next one. And then when you guys bumped it up to 2 story times on Wednesday, I went, oh, I can't do that. If I stress myself out for just one,
it's so stressful.
You guys, I have a newfound respect for you guys, and it takes a lot. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much goes into planning programs and story times and in all the different things.
Especially story time.
Do. I think, a lot of people just, you show up, you take it for granted because you think, oh, this is fun, and all the staff seem so calm and put together, like they got it under control.
It's because we freak out afterwards. Where coworkers are handing you chocolate and you just go, thank you. I don't know by experience.
After. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Again, we all love to do it. So it's not like it's a big chore. It's just, this is our job. This is what we signed up for. We're excited. We love doing this. And, we're here for you. So if you're happy, then that's a success. Right there, and I think like I said, like those are my most memorable moments, are just involving, patron interactions and so being so excited and seeing excitement, and I love that.
I love watching them get all excited. We did a firefighter story time, and we had overflow in the room. I think that was like one of the few programs that we've had a complete overflow. And I will never forget, because it was my dad's he was retiring. He was deputy. No, wait, he was interim fire chief, because the former fire chief, Chief Schobert, got injured on the job. So they asked him to stay an extra year. So he had both the chief replacements and him, and my daughter was a baby. We brought her to story time, and the whole room was filled from end to end. At capacity. Fire department was there. It's fine. And
yeah, they can save everybody.
There were firefighters there, people.
Just don't let the fire marshal hear it.
We don't do that anymore. We learned our lesson, okay? But we had the firefighters there, and I remember Captain Martinez just looked at everything, and he was just like, oh my gosh. And I just looked at Al. I've been doing story times since 2007. And I just looked at Allison. I'm like, you're up. I ain't doing this. I was overwhelmed. So she read a story and did a felt. And then we had them, we had the engineer and the paramedic put on their apparatus, and we split the room in half, and they cheered. And the people in the actual library said all they heard was just this roar. And it was everybody just cheering them on in the room. Yeah. And there's still people who talk about it, I remember that fire. What are you going to do the next fireman story time? No.
Too many.
No firefighters, no police officers, no Star Wars.
No dinosaurs or bubbles.
Dinosaurs or bubbles. However, if you're from a library who needs the programming people statistics, I recommend those.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I am so bummed I missed that dinosaur one.
Oh my God, it was amazing. Like, you knew what the dinosaur was, but you were also feeling like you were in Jurassic Park. Like, the dinosaur would walk up and it was like, oh gosh.
Was it that good? That
Oh,
costume?
yeah, that costume was amazing. Yeah. And Diane, you should try my 3 story times I have to do now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I remember.
I will have to sadly admit that when we shut down, a part of me was like, oh, thank gosh, I can have 2-week break. Now it's turned into however many week break. Now I don't know if we start story time up again come like next year or whatever, if I'm going to be able to stand in that room and go, I am confident, because I think you lose it. I don't know.
I feel like I rarely, once in a blue moon, would I be tasked to do story time at our library, but previous jobs I've had to do it. And I always feel like you have to, like, you get performance anxiety. And I don't know why. The kids are always, interact. Well, not all of them interact with you at the same time. It depends on what crowd you have. But normally the tone of the crowd sets how fun the story time will be. But I feel like as a storyteller and a person that doesn't do it all the time, it is stressful.
It's very stressful. And that's what we tell people, like the parents, they go, well, how long's the story time? And I go, it can be like 20, 30 minutes, depending on the size of the crowd and the energy of the crowd. I mean, one book can be raving, and then like you read it again months later and it falls flat. It really just depends on the energy
of the crowd.
Yeah. And when the energy of the crowd is not good, I mean, and just in between story times too, because, we do 2 or 3 of them. The first one was amazing. And then the second one was just flat. And it's the same exact story time. It's just different people. And when dad's like, there's one dad, there was a dad that always would walk in and I would see him and I would just go, yes, this is going to be a good story time, because he's like the hype man every storyteller needs. Because he's like, I'm like, what song do you want to do next? And he'd like yell out a song and I'm like, okay, like,
yeah.
Or the parents walk in the room, like and I'm like, oh, those 2 are together. Good story time.
You need someone that says, party people.
I need to schedule these parents as my hype parents when they come into the room.
And I think that sometimes, parents do set an example for their kids, and it's very important that they are involved when we do story time, because I feel like it's important if you want your kids to be able to absorb as much learning from a program or story time, you have to be involved, because that also sets a tone. I mean, when you do story time, you just not only do you notice what the kids are doing, you also notice what the parents are doing. So I feel like that's also something that should be put on them.
Yeah.
And, it enhances the experience of your child. Your child learns better if you are there involved. Or yes. That's what I think. It may not be necessarily true.
And no, it's so true, because story time is the only time, like anything like Mommy and Me classes or the such, is the only time that you don't have to like entertain your children. And that's the only way of putting it. You can make like Play-Doh, homemade Play-Doh, and you can make all these like indoor sensories, but you're putting it on and then you're trying to like teach the children. But here you get to be liberated and like quack like a duck. You get to do like fun dances, like the singing in the rain, the Chicha like song, which still embarrasses me to this day, and yet I do it. So if I'm embarrassed, guess what, parents, you have to be embarrassed too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
That could be our outro.
Oh,